We want to win this AI race, and the key to that is to change the mindset. And there are three real big things that you need to do. You need to be adaptable. Things will break fast, and you need to move fast, but make decisions. The second one is to accept it. It's a big thing that's happening. You can't avoid it. And the third one is to understand it's an experience and a process. You start small, and then you adopt over time and become much, much more proficient. So hi, I'm Asaf. I'm the head of FedCore department at Wix for the past 4 years. FedCore is the group that's in charge of dev velocity and quality in the Fed. And in the last 3 months or so, I'm also leading the AI efforts in Wix, focusing specifically on workflows and internal tooling and infrastructure. And with me today is one of my best friends at Wix.
So hi, I'm Gefen. I'm Asaf Chief of Staff, and we'll co-pilot this department for the past 3.5 years, I think. We're leading the Fed Guild, the infra groups, strategic response teams, and various task forces for improvement of the Fed and Wix. And I'm also like the lead of the program, the AI program. So Asaf, let's start. We kicked off the whole initiative, I think, at the beginning of 2025. And I want to take you for the moment when you realize that we need to stop treating AI as isolated experiments and build something centralized.
So I think we understood that at the beginning of the year, and the reason we got to that was that we saw a lot of the teams and efforts are being created locally, and we didn't have a shared purpose and infrastructure. So that was the initial understanding of what we want to do. But then, as we moved forward, we understood it's not just about workflow and tooling and making sure that everyone are aligned. It was also a change in mindset and education, because people needed some incentive to get into the field and to try and work with AI from the beginning. And then we took it all together and we made it into something that's Wix-wide and not just one group or one R&D team doing it alone.
Yeah.
So I think that we understood together as we went that alignment wasn't just the thing. We also needed to make things happen fast. So we started off in February.
Yeah.
And you were the operation behind the thing. How did you make it happen so fast? Because we are in May and we have a lot of results.
Yeah. So I think that we understood at first that the central strategy itself is only valuable when it's fully adopted by all teams. So I think that we did a couple of things together. The first thing that we did was to define the main 4 pillars in the R&D initiatives, to build a strong base. The pillars are online, offline, infrastructure, and education, and we're going to elaborate a bit more later about them. Also, we assigned a clear ownership to each pillar, which means that we gave them the full autonomy that they needed, but also we're ensuring strong connection, cross-team connections. We built consistent routines such as dailies, demos, bi-weekly, monthly for some of the initiatives to keep the progress visible for the teams and for us. And we worked with a clear milestone, as we are doing at Wix all the time with all of the projects that we are leading. And we had a weekly updates of the milestone. We keep everyone in sync. The milestone spanned for 2 months, and we included 2 checkpoints along the way. And I can say that, for example, we can take the external tool that we just implemented in the R&D. So we set a deadline for releasing the external AI tool for our devs, which help us to stay focused and to move fast. One of the main pillars that I mentioned before was the online development. And let's start there. I think it's a good point. You've been deep in that. So how would you describe the transformation inside the IDEs themselves?
So I think we first need to establish what online development is in our perspective. So it's, in some places we call it active development, and it's basically the role that AI plays when a developer is sitting in front of their computer and writing code all the way from inception to production. And the IDEs play a really important part in that, right? Because this is the tool that we're using as developers. So we first set out to understand who are the biggest players in the field, and we did a lot of POCs with various tools. We also have our own in-house solution, smart agent we call Astra. And the combination of a few of those online tools and Astra give us the mix that we wanted. So we are working with Cursor right now in a lot of the workflows that we have, specifically Fed, mobile, data engineering. We're also incorporating more and more backend developers into this field because we have some technical debt that we need to settle before we do that. I think that one of the main things that helped us to facilitate that was that we have guilds in Wix that help us define the profession wide across all of the operational teams that we have. So we looked at each of the flows that each guild does, and we understood what are the online tools that are required to make their day-to-day lives better. So that's what we set out to do. And I think that when we look at online development, like we do in the entire program, it's also about mentality. It's not just about working with IDEs, specifically not just for R&D, by the way. In product and UX, it's even more common. It's working with agents, with Cloud Desktop, with GPTs, and we also facilitate that. We have our own infrastructure that supports that. And I think that the end result that we are now is that the AI is a collaborator for us. It's not just a tab thing that we do that gives us some code completion. It's someone that you can relate to and talk to and get some feedback, and also it writes the code for you. And I think we're going to talk about precautions in a bit, but it's really a significant change from what we had before. So I think that, in the end, the idea is to boost velocity in your day-to-day life while keeping the quality standards.
Asaf, you mentioned Astra before. Can you please elaborate a bit more about Astra?
Yes, so Astra is a custom development agent that we have in Wix. We built it on our own, and I think that it began before we deep dived into what online development really is. So we try to capture a lot of the essence of what IDEs are doing today. But then as we evolved, we saw that there's a place between the IDEs, let's say Cursor, for example, and our code base that needs to know Wix more intimately, to know the flows, to know our complexity, to handle a wider scope than an IDE does today. And it's also something that we see in the field. We see that a lot of the big companies are also creating those unique layers between the developer and the code base that are very specific to their organization. And it's important for velocity and online development, and it's a completing part of what we do in the IDE world and the agent beneath. And we're going to talk about Astra a bit in the offline as well, because they also have a place there.
But while the IDE gets a lot of attention, I think offline flows are just as impactful. So what's changed behind the scenes for developers?
So let's define offline development like we did with online. The offline part is the reactive part. It's where you already have code in production and things are happening around you. You have a bug that's opening up in Jira, you have a migration that you need to do from React 17 to 19, and you have a production incident in the middle of the night. The idea is that the AI is so contextually aware that it can take away a lot of the mental load that you need to invest when you're doing those things, to the point it becomes automatic. So if a Jira bug opens up, and I already have a PR that shows me the fix, this is an immense amount of work that's being, obfuscated for me as a developer, and I can focus on doing the real hard tasks of software engineering. And at Wix, we're focusing on a few main flows: bug fixing, production monitoring, and migrations. And when you do all those things together, then you understand that while we give the online flows and we improve the lives of developer over time, the real velocity boost is in offline flows. And it requires different infrastructure and investment and training and education, but in the end, it's basically an orchestration platform, much like a state machine, as we used to have in the old days, that accepts a condition and moves to the next one. And a lot of moving parts that give you information and the ability to do actions. And then it comes back, like we said before, to Astra. When we want to change code at Wix, we expect Astra to know how to do that because she's the intimate part of the ecosystem. And when it all comes together, then you have a flow end-to-end that can be defined by product managers that lets you understand the trigger, a bug opened in Jira, as an agent in the middle that understands what's going on and asks LLMs, tasks Astra with doing something and ends up with informing the developer that it was done, that the PR review is waiting. And I think that when we see it all coming together, it's like magic, because life is truly changing and it's a whole new world.
And of course, none of this would work if the underlying infrastructure wasn't ready to support it. So, how did we build a foundation that could grow both online and offline?
So I think that we understood as we went, a lot of the things that we did were, we understood on the fly. We started with an intent and then we understood things. And one of the first things we understood was that the infrastructure needs to serve both online and offline flows, right? Like we have MCPs somewhere in the mix, and we need to have a way for everyone to connect to them appropriately. So we created an MCP gateway that gives you an ability to talk to them, whether you're an online flow or an offline flow, and everything that we could platformize to make life easier, we did. But we really wanted to keep the freedom of experimentation down to the actual teams that are doing the business work, because they are facing the real problems. So we always worked on creating open platforms. Even the orchestration platform that we talked about is basically a workflow manager. You can go in tomorrow, or I can go in and do a different workflow for different purposes and then share it with the company. So it was important for us to unify the pieces that needs to be accessible for everyone, but also to keep a large level of customization so you can go in and change what you want, because your use case is a bit different. And it's just starting. We're doing a lot of work. We need to figure out the agent-to-agent protocol and platforms that we want. We need to understand how we are supporting custom GPTs as we evolve. But I think we're already doing a lot of progress, and the mindset is correct in how we build the infrastructure. So it scales really well when we go forward. So I think the understanding all of those things bring us to the fourth pillar, which is education and mindset. So when you are totally invested in that, so how did you go and make it happen at scale?
Okay, so I'll separate my answer into two phases. Let's stick with phase one for now. So we called it a AI marathon. This is the phase where we are now. And it's actually an engineering-wide effort designed to bring everyone on board through live session led by our experienced Wix developers. And we did the physical sessions, we did the online sessions, and the content is actually accessible to all levels, which create a welcoming space. So even those who haven't engaged with AI never will feel comfortable to jump in. Also, we made sure that our devs are actually worked with the tools, the external tools that we bring them, and not just learn about them in theory. And of course, like we created separate Slack channels for each tool to make sure that everyone get help and feel supported, so everyone has a guidance every step on the way. In phase two, we were going to create more advanced materials that's going to fit all levels, and we identified 4 levels of experience. The tier 0 are going to be the people that haven't engaged with AI at all. Tier 1, those are people that have a basic knowledge. Tier 2, confident AI users. And Tier 3, those are the power users, our pioneers. So as part of this phase, we will build a forum, a new forum, our ambassadors, as we call them, AI masters. And they will help us to provide support within their groups or their companies. Also model good AI usage and like a daily adoptions of new tools. Share knowledge and create a friendly space for everyone to learn and look ahead for researching new tools.
So Gefen, I want to iterate a bit on AI masters, because I think it's a really important part of what we do. From our perspective, they are the first line of adoption, right? When we have a new idea, we come up to it and we talk to the centralized group of people that have a touch base with their company. Roles are a thing that we have at Wix. It's a thing that you do on top of your job. And it gives you growth opportunities behind doing your regular day-to-day of front and back-end development. And in this case of the AI masters, when you have such a big R&D environment in such a changing world, you want to test and iterate really fast on concepts. And those are the people that we work with to bring that knowledge into the companies. And I think using that gives us real-time feedback and gives us the ability to do bold decisions really, really fast.
Yeah, I can say that as I see it, it's a unique opportunity for them to grow, influence, and to lead both personally and professionally, of course. And while they're playing a key role in defining the most exciting transformation in the tech today. So you've talked a lot about mindset, not just the learning to use the tools, but also changing how we think about our role as developers. So can you walk me through what you mean by the wave?
Yeah, the wave is an interesting thing. I think that mindset is mindset, because it's such a theoretical thing. Like, we have a lot of takes on that, but there are a few things that help me focus on that when I'm looking at the thing. The first one is that we need, first of all, to accept that this is happening and it is big. It's not something that, small or avoidable. And the wave analogy that we have is that you're going to the beach and you're having a lot of fun. But then there's a really big wave coming, and you can look at it and say, oh my God, I'm running away. And then you're out of the beach and there's no fun in that. You can wait for it to hit you in the face, which is also not always fun, especially you can ask my kids, it's not fun. And the last one is to actually go and endure it, to be on top of it, to find a way to get past the wave and be in a place where you're better because you did that. And the AI is a wave. It's a big disruptive change that's happening in our profession as developers, I think in all professions, but if we're focusing on R&D, then it's even more. And the first one is to accept that and to say you can't put your head in the ground and say, it's not here, it's not happening, I'm just going to keep doing my own thing. It's not going to work at all. And I think the second part, when we ask people to face uncertain realities, you also need to ingrain a concept of adaptability, because we don't really know what's the next leap and when it's going to happen and how it's going to affect us. But the other side of not knowing is to be in an analysis paralysis mode, where you don't do anything because you're not sure what's going to happen next. And I think the balance between those is adaptability. You need to be in a place where you're making bold decisions, but short-term ones. This is why when you talked about the milestone, it's 2 months, because we can have a guiding star on what we want to be in a year, but the actual tactical decisions need to be made really, really fast. So adaptability is also a really key thing in what we're doing. And I think, to capitalize on all of that, or to cap it into some form that is easy to understand, I think that, like you said about the tiers in education, there's also tiers of mindset. You can be in a place where you're still searching your search engines for answers, but I challenge you and say, no, use ChatGPT, use Claude, just try, because then you start to understand the agent and understand the boundaries of AI and understand what it means to actually work with the machine on the other end and not some static search engine. And then the next phase would be to try the same thing with AI tools such as IDEs. Developers are people that enjoy comfort, and we're lazy. And learning new things, usually we need to be really incentivized to do that. But the analogy we use a lot together is the track runners, right? You're a really good runner. You run really fast. But someone tells you, look, sit aside for a moment and wear those jet-powered boots. They'll make you run really fast. But you're saying, no, but I'm running really fast right now. I don't want to stop. But if you don't, someone else wearing the jetpack boots will run even faster, even if they are a junior developer that's really adaptable. So you need to be in a place where you're putting aside some of your comfort to face uncertainty and then become really better at that. And when you do that, the next phase, there are 2 other steps that you do on the way. The first one is you're starting to look at product and you're saying, wait, why doesn't this have AI? Why is there no chat? Where is the assistant? How can I make my shopping cart more productive? When am I going to send emails to people with the digest of the products they bought before that an agent chewed up a bit? And the last phase, which is really hard, we're still learning how to do that, is to look at engineering problems that have no effect on user interface and to try and solve them with AI. Our VP R&D has an example of one of the hardest things we do in engineering, which is also the stupidest, is to import and export CSVs. And when you're doing that in a static way, you need to have a lot of rules. What happens if the character is wrong? What happens if the relationship between cells is wrong? It's a really hard question sometimes, and I'll give a spoiler. Sometimes we even use it as a question in our recruitment processes. We probably won't now after the podcast, but still. And the idea is that to say, if you have an agent on the end, you can just look at the data and it will do the thing for you. You don't need to do all those static rules. You just need to have an input and output, and there's a black box in the middle, which is the agent. So when we start looking at engineering problems this way, I think this is the real leap that we'll do that will make our velocity even greater as a whole company. But this takes time.
And of course, as you said, if we don't stay adaptable, we risk our powerful users the wrong way or missing out an advancement in the field. I mean, it brings us to something you've warned about many times, the over-reliance, the misalignment, shallow usage. So let's talk a bit about the risks.
Yeah, so I think like every good thing, there are two sides, right? And I think the pushing to adoption is a really good thing, but it creates a lot of misalignments in the way we feel AI should be used and how the users, which in our case are the developers, think. And some people adopt it really well, and they're the mainstream, and I'm happy and confident to be in a place like Wix where a lot of developers are actually super involved and are part of it. But we also see the fractions in the side, and they are people that are using it really shallowly. Okay, if you're using an IDE, one of the big features that you get is that you're writing code as usual, but it gives you some suggestions. So it's really good. It boosts your velocity. It's fun, but it's not really using AI. It's using an IDE that's a bit smarter than you used to have before. There's no agentic talk. There's no high-level value that you get. And when we want to encourage people to actually go and try it out, to try and work with agents. So this is the first risk. The second one that scares me more is over-reliance. It means that, and again, it's the other side of shallow use. It's saying, okay, there's an agent here, then I don't really need to know code. I'll just be the connecting pipeline between product and the code, but it means that I'm losing touch. It means that the AI does things, and it hallucinates sometimes, and I won't be able to catch it, and if I miss, it's like a fungus. It keeps growing, and you suddenly have a code base that you don't know anything about, and it's not working as you expect, and the debugging efforts are really hard. So over-reliance is a bad thing, and we need to be in a place where we're looking at that. And I think that one of the things that made people change their minds when I told them, when we work between two teams, sometimes there's contribution, right? I'm coming and contributing code to your code base. You would never take my code and just put it in your code base. You will always check it, right? The AI is a contributing team. You need to be as strict and critical to the AI as you are to another team. And I think that another one, and this is, again, a risk that happens a lot, is overextending. There's a lot of NPM packages out there in the world. You've learned over time as a front-end developer not to use specific packages that are not, you have a feel for the weird ones. MCPs today are much like NPM packages. People are using them all the time, and they could be throwing away our data to APIs that we don't know and trust. So the way we deal with it at Wix is that we have a whitelist of things that we looked at. We're partnering with Anthropic. We're talking with a lot of companies to use their own whitelists as well. But the idea is that when you want to use an MCP, let's make sure it's secure and it's legally acceptable, because once you give it to the agent, it doesn't have the same level of moral that you do, and it can do crazy stuff. And I think the last risk that we have in the world of AI is the human element that's starting to feel the pressure. And it's a real thing, right? That you're changing something and suddenly the machine is doing things that you could have done yesterday and now you don't need to do anymore. But the thing that keeps me calm, I'm a software engineer. In the end of the day, I'm also a software engineer. And what helps me stay positive is that the AI can do 80% of what I do, not 100. When it does it at 80% quality. Again, the numbers can shift. People will say it's 70 or 90. It doesn't matter. It's not 100 and it's not 0. So it does 80% of what I do. It does it in 80% quality. And it faces complexity in levels that are not as high as what we do today at Wix. We have crazy microservices, micro frontends, all kinds of connections that just to keep the context for an agent is insane. So probably over time this will change and agents will become smarter and LLMs will have better memories and RAGs and all of the nice words, the buzzwords that are being tossed around in the industry. But the core principle that a human can orchestrate the thing better, I think this is with us for a while. So I'm not that worried about that.
So I think let's wrap with a vision question. What does done look like for you by the end of the year?
I think it touches on everything that we talked about, right? My ideal outcome, if developers are as savvy with AI, the language and working it as they are with Git, with the tools that we have in the industry, and when you do a discussion with someone, it's part of the discussion, and I think it leads to the place where when you face a challenge, let's ask ourselves if we can use AI to solve that. We could say no. It's fine if the answer is no, but I'd like to know that we asked the question before we say no. I want to see developers working on more interesting things, more time, right? Like solving real big product issues, infrastructure things, not doing chores, not doing migrations, not fixing bugs. Not that there's anything wrong with fixing bugs, by the way, and you will still, because it can't solve everything for you. But this is not the part where you're being truly challenged. And to grow, you need to be challenged. Let's challenge people more. I think to do that, you need the online flows to cover a lot of the flows that we have today, much more than we have at the moment. We're continuously expanding that, but we'll get to everything. I think the offline flows need to be created whenever we see something happening twice. When you do something twice, in a row, or not in a row, and it's the same income and outcome, let's do an automation for that. And I think when we combine all of this, this is the ideal end result. When we combine all of that, then Wix becomes something that moves really, really fast, and it can challenge the status quo that it has today, both business and R&D wise, because it can do so many things. We have a lot of engineers and a lot of really, really smart people. If you give them jet-powered boots, they become really unstoppable. So that's the end goal. And you?
Nice. So I think that the Gen AI is always evolving. So there's no fully done. But I think that by the end of the year, I want to deeply embed the AI to be deeply embedded in our teams, culture, workflows. I want everyone to feel confident using it. I want our support team to actively help developers to grow and to innovate. And for us, I meant to stay agile and ready to adapt the changes. And I think let me leave you with something powerful. Are you ready?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay, so I think that the future of development is not AI versus people, and we understand that it's AI with people. And at Wix, we are building the future together. Thank you, Asaf.